Good evening, board members. I am Shannon Beatty, proud new teacher and mentoring induction coordinator in BCPS. I'm here tonight to discuss some of the exciting changes that we have made to our mentoring model over the last several years with your support. And before doing so, I wanted to provide some context as to the why BCPS felt like they needed to change our model to reflect what is and isn't happening in teacher preparation programming, and to extend upon the work of David Kolb's experiential learning theory, which is a model that we have been adopting, I guess, and adapting over the last several years to ensure that all new teachers in BCPS feel as if they have the skill, the will, and the ability to positively impact student outcomes. So it's important to understand that traditional teacher preparation programs are often more passive models of learning. And in the first 3 years of our pre-service teachers training, the bulk of that time is spent in a lecture hall with professors standing in front of them, directly teaching about pedagogy and theory, and then assessing students' knowledge in the form of a test or quiz, a more traditional assessment that is not at all in an authentic context where students are applying their knowledge until their student teaching experience, which in this state traditionally happens at the end of a pre-service teacher's training, full-time experience typically occurring in the spring alongside an expert teacher. And so this gentleman is David Kolb. And again, as I had mentioned at the opening of his presentation, his work is really the foundation for BCPS's mentoring program. In 1984, Kolb introduced his theory and what his text was called experiential learning. His work largely built off of John Dewey and Jean Piaget, who, through their contributions in cognitive development and Dewey's pragmatism, suggested that all learning should be occurring in by the act of doing, and that it is always a case where we are learning and relearning to refine our understanding of the world, which as educators we certainly can appreciate. And so when Kolb originally published his theory for the world to unpack, it wasn't without criticism, particularly when it came to how he defined the role of a teacher. And so in the early publication of Kolb's work, the teacher was defined really strictly as the facilitator of learning throughout the learning theory, which I'll extend upon in just a moment. And what critics said in response to this was that the role of an educator is far more convoluted than simply facilitating learning. And so in 2014, Kolb responded to this criticism and said, "Hey guys, this is exactly what I meant. Yes, primarily the role of a teacher is to facilitate learning, but at some times, completely congruent upon where a learner is in the learning cycle, the teacher serves as the coach or as the evaluator, and sometimes has to step in as the subject or content expert." And so Kolb's model, in theory, at most simplistic view of it, is contains 4 stages. And so the first stage is what he labeled the concrete experience. And so this is considered the initial doing of the learning. So in the context of student teaching, this is where pre-service teachers transform theory to actual practice and fully immerse themselves in teaching a lesson, responding to students, and managing behaviors, the many roles of a teacher in any given lesson. And then they move to the reflective observation stage of learning. And during this really important stage, students step back and they think about the experience that they had just engaged in. So to refer back to our student teaching example, the lesson is over, pre-service teachers reflects with expert teacher regarding student learning, evidence, did it take place, what teacher behaviors contributed to the various levels of learning. And then they move on to what is called the abstract stage of learning, which he referred to as the abstract conceptualization. And so this is when new ideas begin to form. So we look at students who were successful with a given strategy, students who were not, and we start to form new ideas or generalizations about learning. We might, alongside our expert teacher, think about a new strategy to approach those students where learning did not stick. And then finally, the fourth stage of Kolb's theory is what he labeled active experimentation, and that is doing it again. It is refining based on the learning that took place, often in a more complex situation. And so while this is super beneficial to our new teachers, what we find is somewhere around October, November, that there's a sense of disillusionment their first year of teaching because unlike their student teaching experience where they had an expert teacher alongside them the entire learning cycle of their student teaching experience, prior to BCPS's model, they kind of just get thrown into the classroom and they say go. And so our new teachers feel as if that their efficacy, their ability to influence student performance is not what they had idealized in their teacher preparation programs. And so BCPS's mentoring model, extending on Kolb's work, is that all new teachers to BCPS, that's also not just new to the profession, but new to our school system, will receive a full-time, full-release mentor, expert teacher. All year, that person will be available to them for 45 minutes during their planning period, and then they will also be available every week to support them within their classroom. And the reason why this is so valuable is that it's happening, the learning is happening like their student teaching experience in an authentic context, so that new teachers have an opportunity to engage in learning during the concrete experience, reflect alongside their mentor, and then decide how they would like things to change or be refined in order to continuously support student outcomes. And so BCPS's mentoring model, which we affectionately call our coaching cycle, is absolutely built off of Kolb's learning cycle. And so during the concrete experience, our new teachers, alongside their mentor, engage in teaching a lesson in front of their kiddos. This may look like mentor observing and scripting new teachers' lesson. They might be co-modeling or co-teaching alongside the new teacher. It is always followed by reflective observation in which new teacher and mentor sit side by side and reflect on the lesson together based on data. And so if it was an observation, they would be looking at the scripting observation data to see teachers move and how that corresponded with students. If it was a modeling or co-teaching experience, they would be looking at analysis of student learning to determine if learning took place and for whom. And then it would lead to the abstract conceptualization, where they decide on what strategies that they want to refine and extend upon. And then if there's an opportunity to do some co-planning or co-creating for students where learning did not stick or that require additional teaching or reteaching. And then it jumps to that active experimentation where they put their co-plan or co-creation back into the authentic context of the classroom, and the learning and coaching cycle continues. So this concludes my presentation at this time. I'd like to stop and address any questions that the board may have.